Welcome to Gems with Shom, a podcast about beat digging, records, and other things. Today, I'm joined by multi-instrumentalist, vocalist, songwriter, producer, DJ, maker of records, not to mention beat digger, Samuel Jones Lunsford, or most of you may know of him as Stimulator Jones. Thanks for joining me, brother.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. Thanks for the nice intro there.
Of course, of course. I really like what you put into the world. I like your music. It's great music, from your most well-known song, Soon Never Comes, which is excellent, to your beat-heavy instrumental work. It's great music from Stone's Throw, as well as Mutual Intentions, other labels. You have a number of projects out there, and you kind of walk the line between full-on R&B vibe to beat tape type instrumentals they're hip-hop instrumentals, and you don't see that every day. So I really appreciate, just as an observer, your quality of music, most importantly, and your originality, which is rare in this world. So I knew we'd have a lot to talk about.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I try to have range with the music that I create. So it makes me happy when someone recognizes that and appreciates it.
Oh, I think it's admirable. How did you get into the world of beat digging?
Well, I started collecting records when I was young. So I always had records. My parents gave me a little like Fisher Price turntable when I was a little kid, and I had that in my bedroom, and I would listen to my little Sesame Street records and whatever, hand-me-down records my parents would give me. Like they would give me like some Rolling Stones and like Jay Giles Band and like some classical stuff. I think I had the soundtrack to the film Amadeus and like just, random stuff that my parents would give me. And then about 1996, when I was 11 years old, I really, really became obsessed with hip hop music. And it went from, hearing stuff on the radio and seeing it on MTV and being like, oh, that's pretty cool. I went from that to being like watching BET Rhapsody religiously, and then subsequently being like, oh, I need this CD, I need this album. Like I wanted to start owning the albums. And so I started acquiring lots of hip hop albums, Camp Lo, Wu-Tang, Outkast, Black Sheep, Black Moon, very Alcoholics, various Beat Nuts, various things. And I would read the liner notes, and I kept noticing they would say, this song contains a sample of this song. And the wheels started turning in my mind. I'm like, oh, okay, I think I know what that means. I think because in some I would recognize pieces of other songs in hip hop songs, and so I figured out sampling is when you take bits and pieces of already existing songs and you loop them, you reconstruct them, and I thought that was so cool, and I would love the loops that these producers, like DJ Premier and B Miners and RZA and Eric Sermon and all these people, Bomb Squad, all these different sounds and loops that they were picking. I just loved it. And lots of them I didn't recognize, but I was like, man, that's so fucking cool. Like what I need to hear like the actual song that they sampled that from. And so then I started trying to track down these records. And so yeah, I would look at the liner notes and kind of like make mental notes of like albums to look for. I would go to there was a flea market in my hometown called Happy's Flea Market. It was kind of like a swap meet kind of place, and they had a record shop inside. Um, it was outdoor and indoor flea market, and inside they had a record shop, tons of records. A lot of them were trashed and scratched all to hell, but if you really dug, you could find some good stuff. And you know, that's how I found out a lot of samples I found from, you know, digging there or at record stores or, you know, wherever. And then I also have to mention this was huge to me. I can't overstate how important this was to my beat digging journey. There is there's a website, it's still online. It's called the Rap Sample FAQ. And
Yeah.
are you
Yeah,
familiar with
I'm
that?
familiar.
Okay,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean,
So
big time. Yeah.
yeah. So that I randomly discovered that website in like 1998 or something. I was on my, you know, dial-up internet. I was searching something about Gangstar, and then somehow that website came up, and I stumbled upon it, and I was like, "Holy shit! This is what I've been looking for. This is incredible." And so I would just go through that website and like that's where I found out, oh, who's Bob James? Like tons of people are sampling him. And then like, um, and then you know, I found like, uh, different like Black Moon and Gangstar samples. And so I started being like, all right, well, I gotta hunt down some Bob James records. And then also they had a email list that website did. I signed up for that email list, and it was cool. It was just this whole community of like beat diggers and DJs and just record nerds, and they were dropping so much knowledge. And I'm like 13 years old, and I'm just like soaking all this up, trying to learn as much as I can. And then I would make lists. I would like print out lists, and then I would go to record stores and I'd be like, okay, I need Black Heat Zimbaku. I need Skull Snaps. Well, obviously never found that. But yeah,
Same, brother.
that was how it was. And so, you know, like in seventh grade, I'm like, oh yeah, I found this Donald Byrd record. And the people I went to school with are like, who cares? Like, you're weird.
Oh man, I love this story. A lot of it I can relate to, and I can see why you went into being a musician. I mean, this is you started early, you did your homework, and you have excellent taste. Now, when did you start making music? It seems like you're digging super early. You had early kind of support from your family saying, "Hey, records are good." How did you get into making music?
Well, again, my family played a big role in that because um, I have multiple musicians in my family. My both my parents and my older brother and multiple uncles were all musicians. So we had a piano in the house, and my mom played a lot, and then my dad he had some guitars laying around, and my brother played drums. He got a drum set when he was very young and started taking lessons and um, got really good at a very young age. And so I kind of, you know, followed in his footsteps. Drums was the first thing that I learned how to play when I was probably about 8 years old is when I like really got serious about that, and I kind of just taught myself. You know I watched him, and like my dad kind of gave me some pointers too about, you know, basic beats to learn. And so yeah, that was how it started. And then from there I would, oh, let me pick up this guitar and try and figure out some Nirvana song or something. And oh, let me play around with this piano. And you know, later I started figuring out chords to different songs on the piano. And so I just kind of figured out how to play different instruments, you know, from watching my family. but then also just I just kind of figured it out on my own, and using my ear. Like I was blessed with the ability to hear something, and then I could like find the notes on the guitar or on the keyboard or whatever.
When did you start making music maybe more seriously, thinking to pursue it as a career?
I would say probably around the time when I was about 13 or 14. Then I started having aspirations to like record my own things. You know, I tinkered around with cassette recordings when I was younger, but um, my brother got a cassette 4-track recorder at some point, and so when I was about 13, 14, I figured out how that machine worked, and I started, you know, making my own little bedroom recordings, and then when I was 14, that's when I got my first sampler. And so I just became interested in producing. And so that that was really how a lot of my desire to have a career in music began, was just the simple desire to create my own songs, and you know, and record them and listen back to them and be like, I made this, and you know, play them for my friends. And then you have dreams of, oh, what if I put out a CD, what if I put out a record. um so I think that was really the main thing that motivated me, more so than like envisioning myself on some auditorium stage surrounded by screaming fans. I more envision myself like, or envision someone flipping through the racks at the music, at the CDs or record store, and then boom, there's my album. Like that was more like my fantasy. And so yeah, I would say um around 13, 14. And then once I got in high school, I that was when I actually started playing in bands around town, just like local, like indie rock and punk bands. I was a scenester, and but I still sometimes I'll bring out the sampler, and people will be like, "What is that? You're just like pressing buttons and stuff." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's cool, man." And then of course, you know,
Yes.
15, 20 years later, or maybe less, then everyone's doing that. Um, but yeah, man, it really, it started young for me, and then I kind of was like, this is it, this is what I'm gonna do, to the point where I went to college briefly, uh studying mass communications, broadcasting, because I wanted to be on the radio, I wanted to be a radio DJ. But it didn't last long, and I withdrew from all my classes, and I just was like, nah, this I want to make music and be a musician, and you know, that that's what I was put here to do. And so there it is.
When did you start putting music into the world?
In 1999, me and my brother made a song that was on a compilation for this local. There was a local thing, it still exists in my hometown of Roanoke. It's back then it was called the Downtown Music Lab. And it was like an after school program where kids could come, and they had like a recording facility and instruments, and so kids could come and record music. And me and my brother were some of the first people to get involved with that program. And they they put out a compilation CD of some of the various kids that were coming and recording at this place. And me and my brother made just like a instrumental funk track. I played drums, he played guitar and bass, and so that CD came out in 1990. No, I think we recorded it in 99, and I think the CD actually came out in 2000. But then after that, I started playing in, like indie, experimental punk, whatever, and emo bands, various things. Um, Me and my brother were in a garage rock band. This all happened when I was still in high school, between the years of like 2000 and 2002. And we like self-released CDs for most of those bands. We would make like some of them we only made like 10 copies, and we would like give them to our friends and family. But it was like we made this. And my brother is very into like the engineering and mixing side of recording. Like uh from a young age he got into that stuff, and so all these bands I was just telling you about, like he recorded and mixed our little self-produced CDs. And so yeah, man, when I was still in high school, I was in bands, and we were releasing little, homemade CDs and doing the thing. And it was just that whole like DIY punk rock aesthetic. This like the world I came up in. And hip hop back then was still like that too. DJs were always making their little mixtapes or mix CDs, giving those out, and so the DIY spirit was very prevalent in hip hop as well. Um, so all that just like made sense together for me.
Well, when you describe your family and the people around you, you're a musician to the core, and you had this kind of influence around you to support it. And you mentioned earlier you're from Roanoke in Virginia for our listeners. And when I think of Virginia, I think of some of the best musicians and producers ever, right? I think of the Neptunes. I think of Timberland. I think of Teddy Riley. I think of the Clips. It feels like something's in the water in that part of the world. Tell me about your environment in Roanoke that led to this. I mean, it's not a big city, but you're doing your thing musically at an early stage.
Yeah, it's the population currently is about 100,000. So it's, somewhat small city. However, it's not totally tiny. And there is a pretty cool community here of artists and musicians and just interesting creative people across a pretty diverse range of genres. So yeah, when I was growing up here, obviously I had my immediate family who informed um, my musical taste and what I was interested in. But then outside of that, you could go around and see live music at various places around town. Different festivals, or even me being a kid, obviously I couldn't go in like bars and nightclubs and stuff, but I could still, go. There would be like festivals downtown, and we had like a teen center, and there was various places where you could see bands. And so yeah, I saw that people around here were playing music um of various styles. Sometimes I would go see my uncle's like cover band where they played like classic rock covers, or I might go to some jazz festival and see some people jamming on some jazz music, and I'm like, man, this is cool. Or my brother, he started hanging with these like skater kids they were real into like alternative music. That alternative, that was like the term back then. And that, like, the term alternative could encompass so many different things. And so yeah, my brother, he fell in with these guys about his age or a little older than him, and they would be down in they had a little band, and they would practice in our basement, and they would play like Nirvana and Green Day and Pearl Jam and Smashing Pumpkins, Alice in Chains, and they I think they had some originals too. And they were I remember they played downtown at some like skate demo. It's like, super early 90s activities. So, I was seeing all of this going on, and and then there was also a band around here back then called Swank, and I have to shout them out because as I was getting into like alternative and punk and all that music, I started asking, is there like a local band around here who plays that type of music? And my brother was like, Swank. There's a band called Swank, and that's the band that all the cool skater kids like. So I was like, man, I gotta hear these guys. And eventually I heard them, and I became a huge fan. And they were cool because they had a unique sound. It was like definitely punk energy, they had a saxophone and a trumpet player, but they were not a ska punk band really. It was more like funk. It was like, and the guitar player was like monster, like funk chops, like with the wah wah pedal and everything. So it was this cool blend of like funk, punk, hardcore, and you know, various genres. And they were like the coolest band in this area back in the 90s. They toured with Less Than Jake. They opened for like Voodoo Glow Skulls, and they were one of those bands that like almost made it. Like I definitely could have seen them signing with a label, but they broke up like right at their peak in like 1996. But I got to shout those guys out because they were a huge inspiration to me. And I actually um I wanted to buy their CD, right? But I could never find it in the local section at our record store. And then finally I found a mail order ad in some, I can't remember some newspaper or something. So, this is the 90s. I got my mom to like write a check or get a money order or something, and then I hand wrote a letter to the band. It was like, hey, I'm 11 years old and I love you guys. I'm really excited to own your CD. Mailed that to them, and then they sent me the CD in the mail, and they wrote me a letter back. And they said, this is so cool that you're into our band. You are definitely our youngest fan. And then they said, we have this show coming up at this place, the Iroquois Club, which was like a pretty legendary punk and metal venue in Roanoke back then. Sadly, it doesn't exist anymore. They turned it into condos. Um, but they were like, if one of your parents can bring you to this show, we'll put you on the guest list. So my dad, I'm blessed that my parents are such cool people. My dad took me, and it was on a school night. He took me to this smoky, nasty punk rock club to see this band that I really liked. And I saw a bunch of other punk bands that night. And I was talking about the whole like DIY indie punk aesthetic, and that was like that night I saw all of that in action, and it was incredible and super inspiring to me because it was all these kids. They were teenagers. They weren't that much older than me, and they were putting on all of this music on their own. It was their own original music. They booked the shows. They made the flyers. They did all the promotion, and they figured out the sound, and it was all just like self-contained. And they also had this community of like, this band is homies with this band, and we go and play in their hometown, and then they come play in our hometown. And so it wasn't like this competitive vibe. It was like a very like community vibe of like bands helping each other, and like they're all homies. And like, yeah, they might sound a little different, But that was cool. Like they celebrated the diversity of their sound. So, you go to a show and it'd be like a metal band, a pop punk band, Swank, who's a weird funk punk band, and then some like math rock band. And it was cool. Everybody dug it and everybody was there having a great time. And the mosh pit was crazy. The ambulance came and that was that, man. So um that's kind of a long answer, but it's important for me to cover all of those things when I talk about Roanoke and what I experienced growing up here musically that shaped me and inspired me to do what I do.
I like your answer a lot. On this show, long tangents are welcome. I mean, you can talk about whatever you want. I like the stories not only of the community, but of your brother and your parents supporting you at an early stage. It brings back certain memories. So my father, I mean, he's still around, huge supporter of me collecting records. And we weren't really rich, but I had a ton of records. And I basically took all my money and somehow just bought them, right? And he sits down one day and I was a kid and he's like, I don't know how you're getting all this, but keep doing it. It's really good. It's a really good idea. We didn't have like a lot to spend on this, but he's like, this is a really good thing for you to be into. And yeah, and even my elder brother, I started listening to hip hop at probably too early of an age, like 6 years old. So my brother, only a little bit older than me. We had Ice-T, the Iceberg, which is super hardcore gangster rap album. Is really great. And even the cover is fucking terrifying.
Yes.
And also on tape, we had Eric B. and Rakim and BDP. I was like, this is the best thing in the world. I mean, when you're 6, what kind of opinion do you have? But I just thought like, oh, this is what good music is. And, it's not all a straight line, but having these people around you telling you this is a good idea, I think that's like half the influence there.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's so important because there's lots of people out there who lots of parents who would not support their kids wanting to play an instrument or wanting to collect records. They might be like, that's weird, go play sports, like be a normal kid, like why are you into this weird stuff? But my family has a background in like the arts and music, and so they're like artsy people and creative people, and so they got it. And like you said, man, I think there's so many more bad things that kids can be into than collecting records. So like I think your dad probably like saw that you were genuinely into it, and he was like, yeah, let's go with this, because there's there's a lot worse things you could be doing. So
Yeah, absolutely. So what happened next? You're putting out music with your brother and then on your own independently. And I'm trying to understand how you got to this stage where, I mean, you're doing great as a musician. You have a very popular song out, I mean, now, and as well, Soon Never Comes is a pretty big song. I mean, when I heard that, it's like, this shit is dope. Who is this guy? So what happened from maybe teenage years to get us to that point?
it's a crazy story, man. I mean, there's so much, but I'll try and be concise with it.
We got time, bro. I
Yeah.
want to hear your what's on your mind.
Okay. So so the world of an independent musician in, let's say, the late 90s, early 2000s, which is when I was in high school and like started playing in bands. As I said, I was heavily involved with like the indie and punk DIY kind of world, and we like our messiah was the band Fugazi from Washington D.C. Because they were like the epitome of that like DIY aesthetic. You know, they had their own record label. They toured like crazy. They and put on these high energy shows, and they didn't like sell out. They you know, they had ethics. They were, you know, they were outspoken about social issues, and you know, we thought that was amazing. And so at that time, the internet was still in its infancy. So if you got online, the most you're doing is like going to like message boards and like emailing people, maybe downloading some music off Napster or Audio Galaxy or whatever. You know, that was all we were doing. Um, so that was the mentality. It was like, all right, I'm gonna start a band. We're gonna book tours. We're gonna go to all these cities and play our hearts out. And then, you know, people got to see us live, and then we'll get signed. And that was the mentality of a lot of the people I was around back then. Now, right around the time I graduated high school, um, something shifted in my mind, and I realized that really what was important was recording music and making albums, putting out albums. And I had this shift in my thinking where I then began to have the mentality that the way to get noticed was to record an album, record a record, and put that out, and you could get recognition on the strength of that and that alone. And so I became less concerned with playing out live, and more concerned with being in the studio, writing, producing, recording. And I became a lab rat. And I was inspired by there's a recording collective based out of Athens, Georgia, called the Elephant Six Recording Collective. And there it was a community of different bands. They made like they recorded on 4-track cassette recorders, and it was all very influenced by like 60s psychedelic music. Some of the most prominent bands of Elephant Six were the Apples in Stereo and Olivia Tremor Control, and and they were doing what I was just describing, which is they were recording their own music on analog technology, on tape machines, and then they were releasing it themselves on vinyl in many cases. And so that became what I wanted to do. Is that became my goal? Is like, I want to put out a record on vinyl. You know, I've self-released some CDs. I've played some gigs, been in various bands, but you know, the dream that I really got in my mind was like, I want my own music on a record. Like I want that to happen. And I had this feeling like, you know, if I could do that and the music was good, and the right person heard it, then things could happen from there. Instead of, you know, the label coming to see my showcase at such and such venue, and me standing on stage and thank you very much. Look what a professional entertainer I am. Now, are you ready to sign me? It was not about that. It was about recording great music and putting it on a record. And that was where my head was at. And so after I graduated high school, I left college. I came back home, and I was kicking around trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I ended up moving down to Athens, Georgia, because I was playing drums in a band, a Roanoke band, who was kind of involved with some of those people in the Elephant Six collective that I was just describing. And I was down in Athens for a summer, and then I moved back to Roanoke because I just wasn't really vibing with the scene down there. And I came back to Roanoke, and I just holed up I was living in my girlfriend's apartment, and I set up stuff in her living room. By this point, as a graduation, when I graduated high school, my parents got me a Tascam digital 8-track recorder. So I've now
Dope.
graduated from the cassette 4-track to a digital 8-track. And so I was holed up in my girlfriend's apartment just going crazy with my sampler and some little Casio keyboards. I had a ton of records, and I would just crank out music and record it on this Tascam recorder. This was about 2004, and I was just going nuts recording all this stuff, and then that's about the time that I really became obsessed with Stone's Throw records and Madlib. Like I remember when Mad Villain came out, and I bought the CD and I drove around, listened to it, and I was like, oh my God, like my mind was blown. And so like Madlib was like my guiding star at that time. And so I'm just going crazy, making beats. And then me and my friends, we start renting this warehouse studio like in a sketchy neighborhood for like $200 a month. Back when you could do things like that. You can't do that anymore. It would be like $800 a month now. But so we started renting this shitty little warehouse space. We moved all the gear that we had collectively, which wasn't much, into this space, and it became like our little clubhouse. And we would go there like pretty much every day, just hang out, make music, smoke weed, talk about life, do dumb stuff. You know, we were all young. We were all in our early, I was 20, and my friends were just a little older than me. But we would just record, and we worked on our craft, and we had, you know, just a couple microphones and various instruments. And the room was not soundproofed or anything, but we worked with what we had, and we recorded all the time, and it was just what we did for fun, and we were working towards, you know, putting out some kind of album. And so, you know, I was doing stuff with samplers and also with live instruments, various genres. We would just try different types of styles just to challenge ourselves. And then in 2005, I really got into this like 60s garage rock psychedelic vibe. And I'd been into that music for a while, but something happened that summer was like where I was like, man, I gotta start a band like this. So I started recording songs in that type of style, and songs with vocals. You know, a lot of my stuff had been instrumental prior to that, or I had recorded things with me rapping, but not or me like screaming in my emo band that I was in. But it wasn't a lot of stuff of me like, you know, actually trying to sing, and so I decided that I wanted to make, you know, like structured songs with guitar and a, you know, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, outro with actual lyrics. And, you know, I got on my like John Lennon type vibe and Brian Wilson type vibe, and that was what I was on. And so we started this band called the Young Sinclairs, and then that became like my main focus over the next several years. And at the same time, I was still doing all these side projects of all kinds of genres: hip hop, new wave, goth, synth pop, metal, whatever, just all kinds of weird things. but the Young Sinclairs, like that was like my main thing that I was focusing on.
Were you the vocalist?
Yeah. I was when we played live, I played guitar and sang. And sometimes I got behind the drum kit. But yeah, I was kind of like the main singer and songwriter. And so yeah, we were just plugging away at that. And then we booked, some little tours of the East Coast. We started we were recording just feverishly, cranking out songs. And so we started self-releasing CDs. And eventually in about 2000, I think it was the end of 2007, we caught the attention of a independent record label in Athens, Georgia. There's always this Athens, Georgia connection, called Kinder, and
Well, where is Athens, Georgia relative to Roanoke?
it's relative to Roanoke. It's about between 6 and 7 hours.
Okay. It's far off, but
Yeah,
it's
it's
drivable kind
drivable.
of. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
um yeah, we started working with this label, and they agreed to put out some of our music. And so that was the first time I ever had my own music on vinyl, and that was so huge to me. I remember when the box yeah when the box came in the mail, and I took the album out and I just looked at it and held it, and that was like, yeah, it was like having a baby. I was like, look at this, look what I created. This is incredible. Um, and then, put the needle on, and then you're like, holy shit, this is my voice coming out of the needle through the speakers. Like this is what I dreamt of for so long. So that was like, yes, I did it. I achieved it. And then, that band continued to play a lot. We ended up releasing several records with a variety of little independent labels. And then that kind of that project, that band, kind of, things started slowing down around 20 uh 2014, I guess. And I just kind of got bored with that whole the guitar based rock music scene. It just wasn't very interesting to me anymore. And it was a lot of just people dressing up and trying to look cool, and it was all about what clothes you're wearing, and like uh every you go to the shows and everyone looks exactly the same. And it's like they're putting on a uniform, and everything starts to sound the same, and it just got boring. And I was like, nah, I gotta break out from this. This is not satisfying my soul. And so I started about as far back as 2010. I really started getting back into hip hop. Pulled out my sampler, pulled out my turntables, pulled out my rhyme book, started writing again, started recording hip hop stuff, making beats again. And that was what I did, like, for my enjoyment. And I wasn't quite as into, picking up the guitar and trying to write some cool rock song with, "Ooh, look at my cool, clever chord changes." I just, I would like, I was like, all right, I've done that. Let's do something else. And the hip hop thing, it was just calling to me. And I had still never like properly released any hip hop music. I had been recording it like in my bedroom, or in the living room. I was just like a bedroom producer, bedroom DJ. bedroom rapper. You know, I would rap for my friends and they'd be like, "Whoa." And but I never like released any of this music. Um so I was like, all right, I need to record some stuff. So I recorded um what I called a mixtape album, and I started going by the name Joneski. My middle name is Jones, and it's, just a little old school vibe. And so I released a couple things as Joneski, and that was straightforward hip hop music. This was like 2010, 2011. Now, also around that time, I'm bored with all this guitar rock music, and that whole scene is lame. The main thing I'm doing for enjoyment is smoking weed and riding my bike around the neighborhood and listening to Jodeci and Keith Sweat and R. Kelly on my headphones. And this is like one of the main things that's like giving me happiness in life at that time. And so this seed got planted in my brain of like, man, what if I what if I did some, smooth R&B type shit, mixed with the hip hop flavor. Cuz I've always been a huge fan of soul, R&B and funk music, like of the 60s, 70s and some in the 80s. But to tell you the truth, during the 90s, 'cause I grew up in the 90s, I didn't fuck with R&B. I was like, give me grimy hardcore hip hop. R&B stands for rap and bullshit. Like I don't want to listen to John B. I don't want to listen to Jodeci. Like give me Wu-Tang, give me Beat Nuts. But suddenly I found myself like, man, this Keith Sweat is hitting. Like this Jodeci is like touching me in my soul. And so this seed had been planted in my brain of like, okay, all right, well, what if I've been making these beats, doing this hip hop stuff. What if I started singing on these joints? So in the beginning of 2014 is when the Stimulator Jones project officially began. And it came from the ashes of, I told you I was releasing straightforward hip hop under the name of Joneski.
Right.
Um, I put out a tape in 2013, and the title of the album was Stimulator Jones. And then after that, I decided the Joneski thing is over. I'm not rapping anymore. Like, I tried it. I put out my little releases, and I just decided that like that's not my lane. Like so and I was like, let me do something different with this. So that's when the Stimulator Jones thing um became what I wanted to focus on. Now, another big influence in me uh kind of pivoting in that direction, I was getting into all this like instrumental hip hop stuff of all these like this was when the SoundCloud community was like super dope at this time. I got in like right at the tail end of like the SoundCloud era. So, I found Obliv, who's from Richmond. I heard him and I was like, holy shit. And then DJ Harrison and the whole Jellostone crew, they're also from Richmond. I was like, holy shit, man, these guys are doing it. Like, this is the type of shit I want to do. And then, I found out about the whole LA beat scene community, low end theory and all that shit. Found out about like Mind Design and Ross G and, all that stuff. And I'm like, man, this stuff is so dope. Uh, so I wanted to do my hip hop shit, make beats, but have that influence of like these modern producers that I was listening to, because I was kind of like stuck in this space where I was just all I was listening to was like 90s classic shit, and hey, that's great, but all of a sudden there was all this modern music by artists who are out now, and they're making all this great music that's inspiring me. And so I was like, man, I'm trying to like get into like this community. And I already like felt an affinity with those type of artists, because their music, it was like, okay, this is similar to what I do, and they're clearly like inspired by the same shit I'm inspired by. So let me just kind of like take what I do, flip it a little bit, and I know it'll fit right in with what these other cats are doing. So that was what I did. And I was also I got to shout out Dame, my man Dame Funk as well, because Dame Funk was on fire on SoundCloud back then also. He was always dropping shit, and I loved his whole like DIY bedroom funk vibe, and just like his whole aura just was like super inspiring. And again, it was like, oh, this guy is clearly like listening to the same like 80s funk records that me and my brother used to listen to, like all the Jesse Johnson and Cameo and all that, all that good shit, Zap and Roger Troutman. I always loved all that shit. And I actually found Dame Funk on MySpace back in the day. So I've actually been a fan of his since like 2006 or 7. Um, so anyway, so here I am. It's 2014. Young Sinclairs is boring me to death. I'm inspired by this instrumental hip hop that's happening on SoundCloud. I'm also inspired by this 90s R&B stuff I've been listening to a lot. I'm also inspired by Dame Funk and this like 80s boogie funk aesthetic. And I just decided, okay, what if I combine all of those things and I do all of that? And I can maybe even do like, some jazzy type stuff too. I can do whatever I want. And I'll call it Stimulator Jones, and it'll all just be under that umbrella. And that'll be my thing. And so that's what happened. I created a SoundCloud page, I created a Bandcamp page, and I just started recording all these beats, and even like some like R&B and funk songs with vocals, and I just started uploading all that shit, and trying to get involved with that community of other independent musicians and producers who were putting stuff out. And yeah, I just started making connections. And then 2015, uh I out of nowhere, I get a Instagram message from this girl Sophie, who she goes by the name Sophie Royer. That's her artist name now. Um Back then she was just Sophie, and she was and is a DJ, producer, musician. Back then she worked for Boiler Room and for Stones Throw Records. And so like I knew who she was. I listened to her radio shows and her mixes and stuff. Anyway, she messages me out of nowhere and asked for my email address. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is promising. Gave her my email. And then she emails me saying that she's curating a compilation for Stones Throw Records, and she asked if I wanted to submit some music to possibly be included. And I was like, holy shit, yes.
Can
I
we
sent,
pause for a second on
yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah.
How did that make you feel?
It made me feel amazing because, you know, as I told you several minutes ago, um, I had been a huge fan of Stone's Throw like since the late 90s, early 2000s. And, you know, and in like 2004, if you asked me what was my number one label that I would love to be on the most, the answer would be Stone's Throw. So, you know, my eyes light up. I'm like, yes, holy shit, I could possibly have some music on this compilation that's coming out on Stone's Throw. That would be crazy. And so, you know, I've been recording all this music, and I get on my computer, I make a folder of a bunch of beats and a few things with vocals, and I send that all to Sophie. And then I wait a little bit, and then I hear back from her. She likes one of the instrumental tracks, and she said she really liked this song called Soon Never Comes that I had put in there, which is like a straight R&B jam with vocals and everything.
And for our audience, if you haven't heard it, it's an excellent, excellent song.
Thank you, thank you. So so yeah, she kind of was hinting that she was gonna put both of those tracks on the compilation. Um, and so I'm like, man, this is great. I'm gonna have two joints on this compilation. That's incredible. Um, but then, you know, it seemed like she was just gonna go with Soon Never Comes. And I'm like, hey, that's cool. That's fine. And then uh October of 2015, I go to New Orleans for my friend's wedding. And we drove down there from Roanoke. That's like a long drive. It's like a 10, 12-hour drive or something. Um, maybe longer. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's a
It's like
long.
almost like a flight situation. You drove.
Yes, definitely should have flown, but for whatever reason,
Yeah, I
me and my
get it.
friends, we were like, well, let's drive down there. We'll take turns driving.
Road trip. I get it.
Yeah, road trip.
Yeah.
So we get to New Orleans, and we get to the hotel, we check in, and I look at my phone, I check my email. I have a new email from Sophie. I'm like, okay, cool, let's see what's up. And the email says, hey, Stimulator Jones, meet Peanut Butter Wolf. I just wanted to connect you two guys. And I'm like, holy shit. I'm in an email thread with Peanut Butter Wolf. This is wild. But then it gets crazier because I open, because Peanut Butter Wolf, he chimed in the email. So I open his email and it says, hey man, nice to connect with you. I really love your music and looking forward to working with you on Sophie's compilation and possibly some other stuff. And then my brain is like exploding. I'm like, possibly some other stuff. You know what that means? Like they want to like put out my shit, like not on a compilation, but like on its own. And
Oh yeah.
it was like, it was so surreal because now I have to reiterate, like I had just started the Stimulator Jones project. So I didn't have a lot of social media followers. I didn't have clout. I wasn't cool. I didn't have any industry buzz or like any cool connections, like for a label to see and be like, "Ooh, they seem like they're popping. Let's attach ourselves to them." I didn't have any of that going on. I literally just had my music. So credit to Peanut Butter Wolf because he just on the strength of the music alone, decided that he wanted to bring me into the Stones Throw label.
Yeah. And I'll pause for a second. I mean,
Sure.
I would bet that most people who are going to listen to this podcast know that Peanut Butter Wolf is the founder and lead of Stones Throw Records. Now, I just want to go back. I want to bask in that moment because your journey is really, I mean, it's a pure musician and artist journey. It's really gone in a lot of twists over the years. Not only genres, but like I would imagine ups and downs with all that. It's not
Mhm.
always perfect. And I just want to live in that victory because that is awesome. And I'm really glad to hear it, especially hearing your whole kind of storyline.
Yeah, yeah, it is cool because yes, as you said, I had already been in multiple bands, multiple ups and downs, things that seemed promising and then it like fizzles out. And I had just turned 30. I was 30 years old. So like I've already lived like this whole musical life. And I could have easily just packed it all in and got a tech job or something, but become a graphic designer or something.
Yeah.
um and I thought about it. I actually took some graphic design classes at community college, but then all of a sudden Stones Throw Records wants to put my music out, and I'm like, this is crazy. This is like winning the lottery. And so yeah, that moment was amazing for me. And so then shortly after that, I flew out to LA well, first I talked on the phone with Peanut Butter Wolf, and that was also surreal. I was like, holy shit. Uh and we hit it off. We talked for like 45 minutes, and we had a lot of similar interests in music and stuff. So, we vibed, and he was like, "Yeah, you should, come out here to LA and come by the Stones Throw office, and like, we want to meet you." So in early 2016, I flew out there, and this was my first time on a commercial flight, by the way.
Oh, no wonder you didn't fly
Yeah,
to New Orleans. All right, you're
yeah,
saving it to
that's
go to.
that's that's part of why I didn't fly to New Orleans. I'll just admit, I had a fear of flying.
Okay.
And but it was I was like, man, I got to get over it because I have to get my ass out there and like meet these people, and I can't let this opportunity pass me by.
As far as first flight, that's a good one. That's a good
Sure.
first flight for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but well, so I had been up in like a little passenger plane when I was a kid because my dad's friend had a pilot's license. But that was when I was a kid and, much less neurotic and paranoid.
Also, you had no choice at that point. You were a
Right.
kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I thought that was fun. But yeah, but then for whatever reason, I got this, big fear about flying. And so I avoided it for, you know, my whole life until that happened. So 2016, I flew across the country. I had to take some Ativan, some like calm me down pills.
Okay.
And I but I
You were
was
you were kidding. You did have a fear of flying. You were
yeah,
kidding.
and I was still like like freaking out on the plane when it was taking off. But once we were up and cruising, I was like, okay, I can do this. But it was a long flight. But I got to LA. I went to the Stones Throw office. I met Peanut Butter Wolf, met all the other people that worked at the label, and we just hit it off. And I think they saw that I was a genuine like music head, and like I knew my shit about hip hop and just about music of all types of genres. And they saw that I had already been in several bands. Like I'd done tours, I'd played gigs, so like I was kind of a veteran. I wasn't like a young upstart who was just getting started in the music business. I'd already been in the game for several years. So I think, that made them feel comfortable signing me, even though, as I was saying to you, I didn't have a lot of followers or like a bunch of fans or any clout or anything like that. But they believed in my music, and so I really appreciate that. And I admire that about Peanut Butter Wolf, because he said to me, he's like, he doesn't care like how many copies things sell. Like if he likes the music, he'll put it out. And I really respect that philosophy. Probably not the best business strategy, but artistically, I really I respect that mentality.
It kind of worked out for them one way or the other. I think
Yeah,
they just get
it
the
did.
best artists and make the best shit, and they just believe in that. And
Yeah,
I think that's what gives them credibility, because genuinely having an ear for good music is rarer than, let's say, the business part. So
yeah,
yeah, I'm glad you said that.
yeah. So that's how it happened, man. And then all of a sudden, I'm signed to Stone's Throw. They put out my first album in 2018.
Album's called Exotic Worlds and Masterful Treasures. If anyone wants to check it out while we're talking through this.
Yeah, so Exotic Worlds and Masterful Treasures came out in 2018. But it had been done for a couple years, so there was 2 years of kind of just like waiting in limbo, and it fucked with my head, honestly, sometimes, because I'm like, oh, is this ever gonna come out? Like, fuck. Like, I even went out and I did like photo shoots. I even like shot some music videos, and then none of it got used. And it just it makes all these crazy thoughts happen in your head.
Hell yeah.
um but and then when the album came out, initially it wasn't like, the numbers weren't that good. It didn't seem like it was really gonna pop. But then all of a sudden, um people latched on to Soon Never Comes, and like all of a sudden all these DJs were playing it. Like Joe K from Soul Lection, he played it a lot. um it was getting played by all kinds of people. It ended up getting featured on the Joe Budden podcast, which is like a popular podcast.
I'm aware. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
super popular podcast.
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
But the dude Rory, who's one of the hosts, they have this segment called the Sleeper Picks, where they pick like a underrated song or whatever, and he chose Soon Never Comes as his sleeper pick. And so that like gave a big boost to the popularity. But then when the song, well, first let me say, I did a tour in late 2018. I went all across the US on a tour with I was also with Kiefer. These are other Stones Throw artists. This was like a Stones Throw package tour. So it was me, Kiefer, Jerry Paper, and Prophet.
Prophet is sick. I
Yes.
swear, Prophet is sick.
Yeah.
That guy, amazing.
And he's an OG. Yeah. He's been doing his thing since the 80s. And yeah, he kind of like had this rediscovery. And yeah, so we all went on this tour together. We were in a bus, and man, I felt like I was living large. I'm riding around in a bus on tour. Like, this is fire. Um, but then, that tour ends, and then it's kind of like, all right, kind of come back to earth a little bit. 2019 goes by. I didn't release anything in 2019. I had stuff that I was working on, but it wasn't finished yet, and I wasn't really in a hurry. I was like, let me just kind of chill. And then here comes 2020 and the pandemic hits. And man, I mean, there's so much we can say about that. That was a whole experience that could be a whole episode in itself. But um, the craziest thing that happened was shortly into the pandemic. Uh, I can I don't remember what month of the year it was
It's
exactly.
all a blur. It was like a time warp.
It's all a blur, man. Yeah, but it was like early days of the pandemic. Um, I get a text from the general manager of Stone's Throw Records, not Peanut Butter Wolf, but this other guy who's the general manager, and he says, "Dude, did you see this?" And he sends me uh, a link to a Instagram story. Billie Eilish, the massive pop superstar, has posted a on her Instagram story. It's like a little video of she's on vacation in Hawaii and she's like showering under this waterfall, and she has put my song Soon Never Comes as the music in her story.
She's got good taste.
Yeah, and I was like, again, mind blown. Like, what? This is so random and crazy. Like, but then of course, then that gave a big bump in like the attention to that song. Got a lot of attracted a lot of new listeners. Although I'm sure a lot of them probably went and checked me out and they were like, "Who is this guy? This is weird. Why does she like this? I don't know. I don't know about this guy." But you know, Billy likes it, so I guess that means it's good. That means it's cool, right? People, you know, you got to lead the horses to water.
I
People
hear you.
are sheep. Um, no, but I was grateful for it, man. It was really wild, and it definitely gave me a little boost in my clout. Like, yeah, okay, I got some clout now. Nah, I'm just playing.
You got some clout. It's a popular song. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. The cool thing was just, you know, it brought attention to my music, so I was grateful for that. And I went out and got really drunk that night. I remember.
that's to me. It sounds about right.
I had to celebrate a little bit.
Hell yeah.
And but then it doesn't end there, because later that year, um, this was like in the midst of all the lockdowns. Everyone's stuck in their houses. Um, Amazon Music hires Billie Eilish to curate a Amazon Music playlist. Like, it's called Billie Eilish at Home. It's like, you know, it's supposed to be like her songs that she's listening to while she's stuck in her house. Well, guess what song is on the playlist? Soon Never Comes. So, you know, it's another blessing, and I'm just like, man, this is wild. And you know, it brings more attention, more fans, more listeners. And yeah, that was really crazy. And so that is by far my most popular song, and I think it's largely because of all of those things I just described. Like, it's the one that's got the most like outside pushes from more prominent figures or whatever.
It's a hell of a story with a lot of twists and turns. Also, I mean, what I can say is like you're a pure musician. This is what you were doing from the beginning, and you went through your life through all these phases, different bands, even different genres. So it's like it all led up to this kind of like strokes of, I guess it feels like luck, but it's not really luck. You prepared yourself, you make great music. And it's so many twists and turns. I mean, yeah, you mentioned being anxious on a plane. Yeah, it can't be easy to manage like yourself mentally as an artist. I mean, yeah. Throughout this whole story, there's a few points that stuck out to me. Ethics, you stuck to originality, and you're a music guy first. You're a handsome young guy. You could put on a sport coat and be a pop star, but it's
Right.
not. In fact, after Never Comes, you play a beat heavy music, a lot of it, right? Like
Yeah.
sample based, nowhere near pop. You stuck to your ethics, and that's rare in this world. I think that's something to appreciate.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that that gets across because that is important to me. And yeah, I am a music head like more than anything, and that is what I care most about. And yeah, I mean, I even kind of got a little bit of pressure when my first album came out to kind of like, yeah, like, don't wear a hat and don't wear sunglasses in the video in the photo shoots. You're a good looking guy. You should show off your face. And I'm like, all right, well, thank you. That's flattering and everything, but like I don't want the focus to be on what I look like. I want the focus to be on what the music sounds like, because that's what matters at the end of the day. Um,
Well, it's got to be authentic. I feel like you wouldn't feel aligned if you did something too far out, right? If it wasn't true to you. I do see a lot more success coming your way. I mean, I think your music is great. And for that reason, mainly, I think I see more success. And also, it's not the same world as it was even 10 years ago. So someone can have
Absolutely.
different fans in different parts of the world. And it may not be pop in the way, a pop star was in the past, but you can be a successful musician.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And honestly, the life of a pop star sounds exhausting and miserable to me. So, I just want to be able to pay my bills and be able to not have to work some shit job that I hate, because I have so many really talented homies who have had to do that. People who maybe they used to have a music career and it didn't work out, or for whatever reason they kind of gave up, and they got a real job or whatever, and there's always that pressure. If you're an artist, it's like the clock is ticking, and it's like, okay, like, you better like figure out a way to make money doing this, or else.
There's all kinds of other shit that's involved in making it in the music industry.
Hmm.
And the fact that you're rolling, that's something that I applaud. I also see much more. I wouldn't be shocked if we talked again in a few years, you have a different style that evolves even more. And also, I just think for you personally, just talking to you now, I don't think you just would feel good if you went outside of what was true to you. I don't think you'd be comfortable.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head, and that's the thing. That's the most important thing, because at the end of the day, I have to be able to lay my head on the pillow and feel comfortable with the decisions I've made, and I want to be able to, when hopefully live to be an old man, and when I'm dying on my deathbed, I can look back and I say, I made the music that I wanted to make, and no one forced me to be something I didn't want to be or do anything I didn't want to do. And I think that that's important, especially in today's world where, I mean, it seems people are just so eager to gain money or gain attention and fame that they will just quickly discard whatever um, ethics or integrity that they might have had. And I just, that's not the kind of example I want to set. Um, and so, yeah, it's that type of stuff is important.
I love it, bro. But in this one scenario, talking to you, I will applaud your artistic integrity. I don't know if the
Thank you.
world does, and I don't have $1 million to give you, but I applaud it.
Yeah, it's okay. It's all right.
All right. Let's play a quick word association game. Tell me what comes to mind. It can be a feeling, it can be an experience, really anything. Whether you like the song, personal story, where you were in your life, an anecdote, really anything. How many MCs? Black Moon.
This is an incredible song from one of my favorite albums of all time, Into the Stage. Just a masterpiece. I had this cassette, and when I think about that song, I picture myself up in my bedroom in 8th grade, listening to the cassette on my boombox and just being transported to another place. And man, the Beat Miners are they are one of the greatest hip hop production teams ever. Got to shout out Evil D and Mr. Walt. They're
Legend.
amazing. Yeah. So yeah, How Many MCs is great, and that it features a sample of Grover Washington Jr. Hydra, which is a great track. And I remember I had already heard that on EPMD had used it on Underground, the song Underground, which is on Business as Usual, I think. So I was like already familiar with that kind of. And yeah, I love Black Moon. I love Enter the Stage. Classic, hands down. 5 mics, 10 stars.
That's 5 mics for sure. One of
Yeah,
the greatest albums of all time,
absolutely.
with such a cohesive sound. Hell of a record.
Yes.
Capadonna 97 Mentality.
Man, so that was off the Wu-Tang The Swarm compilation. Am I right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think there might have been a 12-inch too from
Okay.
Capadonna.
Yeah. That I heard it on that compilation, and that it's funny because I remember hearing that back in I guess it came out in '98.
I mean, 97. It's called
Yeah.
97.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I mean, maybe it was recorded in '97 or came out in '98. I don't know. Because Wu-Tang Forever came out in '97. I'm trying to remember how much longer it was until The Swarm came out. But anyway, what's funny is I remember listening to that album, hearing 97 Mentality, and the beat kicks in. I'm like, okay. Mm-hmm. It's got like that jazz guitar. And I'm like, all right, when are the drums kicking in?
Right. No drums.
When are the hard drums kicking in? And they never do. And I'll be honest with you, back then I was like, I don't get it. Like, why didn't he add some hard drums to that shit? But obviously that was like way ahead of its time because the whole drumless beat thing has been a trend in hip hop as of late. And so, you know, RZA was way ahead of the curve on that. And, you know, and Capadonna is crazy. So
Yeah. He
yeah.
murdered that shit. And RZA is one of the greatest geniuses of our time. It's unbelievable.
I agree. I 100% agree. Now, obviously, like his you know, like the things, the classics that he made back then, you know, will never be equaled, not even by himself. I still admire him for the fact that he still works, and he's become a filmmaker. He still tours, he still records. And I mean, he doesn't have to. He could have retired a long time ago, but he didn't. So I admire him for that. And like his body of work, like from like 93 to let's say 99, is like untouchable, like unmatched. It's like one of the greatest runs of any musical artists ever.
And super fucking original. That's the thing, right? He made his own world.
Yeah. Yeah, cuz like yeah, cuz like when Wu-Tang came out, you know, the hip hop production, it was still like a lot of funk loops and like funky, you know, uh party jams, and then here he comes with these weird ass creepy piano and organ beats, and it was like this shit sounds like a fucking horror movie, but then there's all this kung fu shit, and like what are they talking about? And this
It's crazy. Yeah,
yeah,
it's the
it,
best.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's keep going. Verbal intercourse. Raekwon and Ghost featuring Nas.
Ooh, yes. Now, Cuban Links is, or AKA the Purple Tape. That is another 5 mic, 10-star, absolute classic album. And I love that, how there's that little piece of the woman's voice at the end of that loop. She's just like, I did it, and then
Yeah.
and then the loop starts over. Like who would think to leave that in there? Like a someone a certain type of brain, when they'd be truncating that sample, and they'd be like, oh, I need to cut that where her voice comes in, I need to cut that out. But Rizzo was like, nah, that's dope, leave that. And that's why I love him.
Also no drums. Also no
Yes,
drums. And
right.
an all-time all-star verse from Nas.
I agree. Yeah, and that was, you know, Wu-Tang Records didn't generally have a lot of guest appearances. So it was cool that they got Nas on there, and yeah, he sounded right at home on a RZA beat. I wish they had worked together more.
Damn Funk Mirrors.
This this was a SoundCloud classic. It was, I remember in like 2013, like I would just get on SoundCloud and play this joint on repeat, and there was this, I can remember the feeling of anticipation, like, oh, like when's Dame Funk gonna drop another joint on SoundCloud? And I miss those days, man. SoundCloud is definitely not what it used to be, but yeah, Mirrors, that smashed, man, and I love Dame Funk so much. Again, someone with a very original sound, like he like created his own genre basically. And yeah, I love him, and I love that joint.
I like to hear your impressions of these songs. I mean, Mirrors in particular, it's like you're astroplaning. You're driving on like a fast road and you're just like vibing. I mean, it's an unbelievable track. No Worries, Suede.
This, I remember when I first heard this, it caught me by surprise, because I didn't know who Anderson .Paak was. I was not familiar. And then all of a sudden, this track, and in particular the live performance of them, in the Stones Throw dungeon, uh performing this song, it was like, when I saw it, I was like, whoa, who is this guy? Like this is fire. And so yeah, that they make such a good pair, like Knowledge's production with Anderson's voice. I feel like they fit really nicely together.
Yeah, I liked it when it came out. I like it even more now. I think in the past, I've been too much of a square thinking about samples. And if I've heard it before, who gives a shit? That song is a banger. And Anderson .Paak kills it because he's so kind of loose on it. That same guy would go on to be a supernova of a star that he is
Yeah,
today. And I love it.
me neither. I had no idea, but yeah, I mean, good for him, man.
He
And
deserves it.
really, I think that track was like a huge catalyst in that.
All right. Sade, Kiss of Life.
I one A question I often get asked by interviewers is, if you could collaborate with one person, like who would it be? And Sade is my answer, because probably the smoothest voice of all time. Like, just so buttery, velvety, and her music is just, when you put it on, it just like it feels good, and it just has like this healing quality to it. Um, so I love Sade, and it would be like a dream come true to produce a track for her, but that'll probably never happen, but it's fun to think about.
I think it's good to think about. I'd say she's so iconic and she represents a whole mentality, feeling that's all her own. And I sometimes find it hard to find the words to talk about someone like Sade because it's its own world,
Mhm.
its own vibration. So many people around the world love her. She's extremely popular, but it seems it's personal to me. Like, I feel like, honestly, in another planet when I listen to that stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
It's like
Yes.
highest level of sophistication. It's amazing.
Yes. And again, like, no one sounds like her. Like, a unique voice. And I think that's something I always come back to, is like artists that have something unique. And I always try to tell people that, I mean, and this is just my opinion, like, I don't look necessarily for like virtuosity in a musician. Like, I don't care like how many fast blazing notes you can play, or like what crazy chops you have, or what crazy runs you can do. What hits me more in my soul is like, if you have personality, originality, and uniqueness, and just like a unique voice, and something that is personal to you, and maybe it's a little off kilter, maybe it's a little funky and weird, but it's, it you hear it and you're like, you instantly recognize who it is when you hear it. Like, that's the type of shit I admire in music.
I couldn't agree more. John Clemmer, Blowin' Gold.
This is a track I remember the first time I heard it was on Ed OG and the Bulldogs song
Right. Yeah.
on their second album. Um,
It's called Less Than Zero.
Less Than Zero. Yes, thank you. I was blanking on what the song was called, but
It's a while ago, man.
yeah, yeah. That I remember when I heard that track. I had that CD. I got it like out from the bargain bin when I was in like eighth grade or something. And that track in particular, and that loop in particular, just like spoke to me. I was like, ooh, man, hold up, who's John Clemmer? I need to find this record. This is on my want list now. And I always looked for that record, and I could never find it. And until many, many years later, I was able to find it for, and it wasn't an expensive or rare record or anything. For whatever reason, I could never find it in stores I went in.
It was one of the first great break beats I found, and I just feel like a personal attachment to that awesome record.
Yes. Yeah, and man, I just love John Clemmer in general. Like, I have several of his albums, and I think he's underrated. And he kind of gets put in that like smooth jazz category, but he's got some funky ass shit.
Yeah, I feel like there's more there that could be sampled that
Oh yeah.
maybe for whatever reason just hasn't yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mob Deep, Trife Life, off the infamous album. I mean, it's like
Yes.
I talk about this album every
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
But again, another 5 mic 10 star classic. And this, I actually have a story about this album. So, so I was born in 1985. So hip hop already had entered the cultural zeitgeist, if you will. Um, so I'm growing up and I'm hearing it on the radio. The more pop rap stuff like Run DMC, and then Beastie Boys, LL Cool J, and then like Tone Loc, Young MC, right? Okay, then early 90s, the I started hearing some of the gangster rap stuff, Dre, Snoop, Eazy-E, all that. And then but then something happens in 1996. This guy that rode the bus with my brother, the school bus, he gave my brother a cassette tape, or no, it was two cassette tapes actually. And these two cassette tapes uh, absolutely changed my life. One tape had it was selections from the first three Daz Effects albums.
Crazy.
So yeah, it was like most of Dead Serious, Straight Up Suicide, and then like half of Hold It Down. And I loved it. I was like, man, I had never quite heard anything like that. And yeah, again, talk about like original, unique styles. I was like, man, this is amazing. I love
That was
this.
quite a trend if you think about it. I mean,
It
the
was.
diggity the diggity era
Yes.
was massively unique. Also pretty crazy.
The tongue twisting style is it was a little trend there for a while, for
Great
sure.
music, great production, great beats. I mean, they're a very popular group. I love what they did with Premiere. It was super hot.
Yeah, absolutely. But all right, that was the one tape. And then the other tape had infamous Mob Deep on one side, or all of it that would fit on one side of the tape. And then the other side had Gravediggers 6 Feet Deep. And
Great.
yeah, that blew my mind because I kind of was talking earlier about how for the majority of like the 80s and early 90s hip hop production, it was very like funk influenced, and it was a lot of like funk loops, still, lots of James Brown grooves. But then the Mob Deep, it's got the spooky pianos and the like creepy kind of classical music organs and
Content, yeah.
harpsichords, and it sounded scary, and the snare drums were like deafening, like Havoc's snare drum. Well, I guess we could say Q-Tip is a big part of that album
Yeah.
also, but credit to Havoc as well. I guess it was the combination of both of them, but like, yeah, that, like, when I think of infamous Mob Deep, I think of those creepy pianos and deafening snare drum cracks. And I think about that cassette tape that my brother had. And I used to listen to it on my Walkman with my headphones. And it would just transport me to another world. And it was kind of scary. But I'd never heard anything like it. And it just like captivated me. And yeah, Prodigy. I mean, rest in peace. One of the best to ever bless the mic, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I could just see you lighting up when we're talking about Mob. Talking about Prodigy and Alchemist is on such a wave right now. There was a Prodigy Alchemist. I mean, it was called a mixtape at the time. I guess it was an album. Return of the Mac. I don't know if you remember that. It
Yeah.
was all right, black exploitation soundtracks, or at least that pimp vibe. And Alchemist felt like he was letting these loops play super long, kind of like he does now.
hmm
And I feel like that was like a turning point for Alchemist, who has always been dope, but he just became like a little bit more open, and it's led to all this like super high level he's on now. I don't know, man. I think that's underrated turning point for like just first of all, the work itself was great, and then everything that came after.
Yeah, I haven't listened to that in a long time. I'm glad you brought that up because I'm gonna go revisit that one.
All right. All right. Keith Sweat, Make It Last Forever.
Okay, I love Keith Sweat. Again, a super unique original voice. The nasally, like it's just it's great. I love it.
He's the man.
Yes, he is the man. And as I said, when I was growing up in the 90s, I I didn't really fuck with a lot of the like smooth R&B that was coming out. There were certain things that I liked, like I had the SWV tape. I remember that, and I had the Shy album, and so there was different things that I liked, but Keith Sweat, I guess what do they call that? Like begging R&B. I didn't really back then I didn't fuck with that. Maybe I was just too young. But when I got older and I had experienced love and heartbreak and heartache, the begging R&B like hits a little more. So, things like Keith Sweat and Jodeci, like they resonated with me when I was like 25. And so yeah, I told you like summer of 2010, like what brought me happiness was smoking weed and riding my bike around my neighborhood, listening to Keith Sweat and Jodeci on my iPod. So I love Keith Sweat. He's one of my favorite R&B artists.
We're really going all over the place. We're really going from like the hardest of the hardcore rap to R&B. I mean, all of these songs kind of happen at the same time, and it does kind of add up to your sound, which is a bunch of stuff together, like harmonized, and you happen to be able to sing really well. So it's a cool outcome.
Thank you.
Aaron Hall, Don't Be Afraid, off the Juice soundtrack.
Yes. So I love Aaron Hall. He's another one of my favorite R&B vocalists. Um, the first Guy album, that's another classic album. 10 stars, 5 mics, love it. Aaron Hall, incredible vocalist. And he was someone who I admired when I was trying to make my Stimulator Jones R&B stuff. I was trying to hit like some of the runs and the notes he was hitting, because it just was a singing style. His voice just spoke to me, and it inspired me to like kind of try and copy some of those different runs and like inflections he would put in his voice. So he's a big inspiration to me. But that's the song "Don't Be Afraid" is wild, because there's actually two different versions. I don't know if you might know this. There's the
I mean,
version.
I'm not aware there's two different versions.
So there's a version on the Juice soundtrack, or it's like the single version,
Okay.
right? And that's the one that most people are familiar with. And the lyrics, if you read the lyrics, they're actually super fucked up. And
Oh,
like,
this, we should just say he went on to have some legal problems. The lyrics to this song is completely objectionable. This could never be made today.
yeah,
I'm glad we should point that out. I think that's
yes.
good call.
Yeah, and I didn't, when I first heard the song, I didn't really catch it at first. I was just like, yeah, this is dope. Like, don't be afraid. Yeah, this is hot. And then yeah, like, I think it's like maybe like the last verse where he he starts saying some like super rapey shit, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
What did he just say? So yeah,
I'm
it's
glad you brought it up. I mean, it's really not great, and he did go on to have some trouble. Let's just say,
yeah,
uh,
which is not surprising.
so not
With
surprised.
lyrics like that,
Yeah.
it kind of gives you a clue. But clearly, I think somebody pointed there was some issue because on his album, I think it's his first solo album, Don't Be Afraid is on there, but it's it's different and the lyrics are changed. Like he toned it down
Shit,
from the single version.
that's
So
crazy. I mean,
yeah,
man, facts are insane.
great song, super fucked up lyrics. But I actually did an instrumental I did an instrumental um rendition of that song on my album La Mano, which came out on Mutual Intentions. I slowed it down and just turned it into like this instrumental neo soul jazz funk kind of vibe with like electric piano and um
I mean, I've heard that song, and it's you're really showing your range. It's a jazz composition, essentially.
yeah.
I mean, it's great. I had no idea. The idea there was an inspiration from Aaron Hall. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
I thought it was a really unique thing you made there. A lot of the Juice album and that song by Aaron Hall, produced by Hank Shockley from the Bomb Squad. So
Ah, right, right.
the facts never end.
Yes.
So,
Right.
what comes next for you? What are you excited about in this world?
Well, I just signed with a label called Bastard Jazz that's based out of New York. Super dope label, really nice people. And I have a new album that'll be coming out in 2026. That they'll be putting it out. And I just released the first single. It's called Paradise Untold. It literally just came out last week. And it's a return to the you know the R&B vocal heavy sound of my first album. And so yeah, that's going to be cool. I don't have a concrete release date for that yet, but it'll be at some point, probably spring or summer of 2026. And I also have some other various side projects and things that I'm working on as well. But that's probably the biggest, most exciting piece of news to look forward to.
I'll be looking for that. I mean, I heard the song; it's pretty great. I was just kind of
Thank you.
listening to your stuff to remind me before the interview. I mean, it sounds great. I think it's going to do very well. I'll ask you another question.
Sure.
What do you care about most in this world?
That is a great question.
You can take your time. It's all
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Um, I care most about health and peace, inner peace, peace of mind, and health of mind, body, and soul. Um, we all need to take care of ourselves because we live in a very toxic and poisonous world that's full of all kinds of ugliness and harm to people, harming themselves and harming others. And that's those things are intertwined. You know how they say hurt people. um I think the best thing we can we if we look around us and we see all these heartbreaking and terrible things happening in the world, and it can make us feel anxious, it can make us feel overwhelmed, and it can make us feel powerless because it's a lot of times it's things that we're not in control of necessarily, that we can't change things outside of our own um, area. So I always say that it's important to just control the things you can control, which is yourself and the things you ingest. And that's not just the things you eat, but the things you watch, the things you smell, the people you talk to, the friends you associate with, the places you go to, the music you listen to, all the different things that you consume. It has an effect on you in totality. And so that is something that we can control, and I think we should just be conscious of that, and just try and be healthy. And It's hard because, especially in the music world, there's a lot of drugs, there's a lot of alcohol, there's a lot of self-destructive, rock star bullshit behavior. And I admit, when I was younger, I fell into that trap. It's easy to do. You have a lot of free time, and you're playing in bars, people are giving you free booze and free substances, and it can be hard to say no, especially if you're someone who is in a position of power or wealth. You can get anything you want, and that is a blessing and a curse, because that can enable your most self-destructive behaviors. Um, so I think, in order to preserve the world around us, and make the world around us a healthy place, we have to start by making ourselves as healthy as we can. And so I try to be conscious of that, and I I drink occasionally in moderation. I went through several years of complete sobriety. I'm at a place now where I can dabble and do it in moderation. Some people can't do that. It's hard. Also, I've struggled with, eating trash, and, being overweight and having high blood pressure. And so, I came to, I mostly eat a plant-based diet these days. And not I'm not like preachy or judgy about it. It's really just a way for me to keep myself healthy, and I don't cram it down other people's throats or anything. I don't form my whole identity around it, but I just bring it up because it's part of what I was describing about controlling the things that you consume, controlling the things that you ingest, and just trying to be healthy, and avoid self-destructive behavior. There's so many patterns of self-destructive behavior um, that people can fall into, and that's not just limited to the food you eat or how much booze you drink. That it's your relationships, it's everything. And so I think at the end of the day, I want people to be okay. I want everybody to be healthy. And I think if everyone had health, they would not commit the horrible things that we see people committing. I think a lot of that comes from people being unhealthy, people being damaged, people being mentally ill, and just, like I said, hurt people. And so I just wish for a world where everyone takes care of themselves, and then in turn takes care of each other, and we can all just live healthy, peaceful existences, and enjoy this great planet together. And so, there's that saying that it's kind of a cliche thing, but where they say, "Be the change you want to see." So I guess ultimately, that what I'm talking about sort of falls into that kind of thinking, where, like I said, you can only control what you can control. One of the greatest pieces of advice I ever got was, worrying about things that you cannot control is pointless. It is totally pointless. So don't worry about that shit. You control what you have the power to control, and we can control ourselves. We can control the decisions we make. So let's just be, aware of that, conscious of our health, and man, y'all rap dudes need to take care of yourselves, man, because hey, I just turned 40. None of us are getting any younger. This whole rock star, self-destructive lifestyle it's gonna just put you in the hospital. It like, and we're seeing people like hip hop legends die way too. People of all music genres, they're dying way too young because they all got health problems, and I just want people to realize that we got to preserve our bodies and make healthy decisions, and not feel self-conscious or like, oh, people are going to make fun of me for eating health food. Like, who fucking cares? Like, I would rather get clowned for eating vegan food than fucking have a stroke and die at age 50. So that's where I'm at with it. And yeah, that's my answer.
I could hear the passion in your voice. Thanks for being so generous and open with our audience. You never know who's listening and what they take out of it. So I really appreciate you sharing that. Thanks for your time, brother. You've been a hell of a guest.
You're welcome. I really enjoyed our conversation.
All right. Peace.
Peace, brother.